Hello, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Finish More Music podcast. I am delighted to be joined by an absolute legend in the scene and a man who's painted a great many memories for me, both in terms of mixed albums, his productions, and amazing nights out that I've had at parties up and down the UK, listening to him spin fantastic records and take the crowd on a journey. It is Mr. Dave Seaman, who is right now still at the top of his game, touring globally, a producer, owner of Selador Records. I'm delighted to welcome you to the show. Thanks so much for being here, Dave.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Good to be here.
So I love to kick these sessions off by getting a sneak peek really into a day in the life of you if we were looking over your shoulder, because as I mentioned, you do have all of these different things on. What does your world look like, and even the things that you do for your personal development, effectiveness, self-care, any of those things, the holistic piece?
Obviously this last year, our last 18 months has been quite different to the previous 25. And we are getting back to a little bit more of like normality now here in the UK, at least. Yeah, I mean, this month is the first month really in 18 that I've actually got gigs every weekend. So it has changed considerably. But generally, I mean, I have family now, which is obviously very different to when I was touring through my 20s and 30s. I've got 3 boys, so family life takes precedent first thing in the morning with getting everybody ready and taking the little one off to school. But then usually come back and start. I mean, each day can be slightly different. It depends on. I mean, Selador does take up a lot of time, and it is something that I've concentrated a lot on in the last 18 months, with not having to go off and do traveling and gigs every weekend. And we really have big plans to keep expanding the label and doing more and more with that. So a lot of my day is taken up with planning and coordination of everything that we've got going on with the label. Apart from that, obviously I've got the radio show to do every month as well, and now with gigs being back, and even throughout lockdown I was doing lots of streams, so it's not like I stopped listening to music, which does take up a lot of time. There's so much music coming out. I'm going through hundreds and hundreds of tracks every week. So that's just an ongoing process as I'm trying to deal with emails, and social media takes up so much time as well now. So I just, it depends on what mood I'm in. I don't really have a specific thing I do that day in that order. Some days I don't feel like dealing with loads of like bitty emails and all the, paying bills and things like that. Some days you're in the mood of it. It's like, right, let's crack on with that and get on with it. And I feel like that's a bit of a key thing. Depends on if I'm not in the mood to kind of deal with lots of housekeeping stuff, as we'd call it, then maybe I'll just kick back and listen to some music for a couple of hours, which is always a pleasure, or should always be a pleasure. If it's not, then it starts to be a problem. So yeah, and even that could be for lots of different things as well. Obviously I listen to music with lots of different caps on as well, whether it's be occasionally you go through some demos that come through for Selador. Not that that's a priority really, because we have so much music already all the time, and we've got an roster of artists now that constantly delivering music, so occasionally we'll go through and deal with some of those. Obviously I've got my inbox of stuff that I'm just general new music, trying to keep up with all my favorite producers and favorite labels. So go through that on occasion, and sometimes just listen to other music. I'm really back into collecting vinyl again. So that's something that happened through lockdown, and really collected records for about a decade since the digital era sort of took over. But that gave me the lockdown and being at home and not having to do usual hamster wheel things, gave me a chance to really go through what was a massive job of going through my entire record collection and deciding what I really wanted and what I didn't want, and selling some on that I didn't need anymore, offloading onto to find a better home for some of them, that people that really wanted certain things that I didn't anymore. And as in the process of that, then I really got back into wanting to fell back in love with collecting records, my boyhood passion of record collecting. So
Awesome.
so that's an ongoing process. You see the wall behind me there of
Yeah, that's fab.
of vinyl. So yeah, so just it can be, every day could be a different day.
Totally right. Get it. One of the things I picked up on there, and I'm diving off on a slight tangent, but I'd love to know this. You mentioned that you obviously have an established roster of artists on your label.
Yeah.
What does it take somebody who's not on your label to break through now? How do they best get your attention, and where do they need to be at to make the grade?
Wow, it's a really difficult question, because there's no real hard and fast rules. There's no specific answer to that, and I really do feel a little bit for young producers coming through now, because there are it's such a competitive market now, minefield to negotiate. I was very lucky when I first started making music. There was I don't know, a tenth, not even that, maybe 1% of the amount of people that's making music now. So it wasn't, not that it was easy then to get noticed. There was different challenges back then. You had to get the ears of A&R men within record companies, which was a challenge in its own right. Now, obviously, you're able to get your music out there, get it out to the public, but to get the ears of specific labels, specific brands, of promoters or whatever, is very difficult, because people are busy. That's the problem. I think one of the reasons why an artist might want to be on Selador is because they think we're doing a good job as a label. And the reason we're doing a good job as a label is because we put a lot of time and effort into doing the right thing for the music we already have. This is what I'm saying about priorities for demos. Sometimes get people saying, "Oh, you don't even listen to the demos." It's just impossible. It's just impossible. We haven't got enough time in the day to listen to all the demos. And also, what would be the point of sitting there listening to hundreds of demos when we haven't got enough space to release them on our schedule anyway? Our schedule is already full, so our priority is to work the product that the music we've already got. Sitting there and listening to loads and loads of demos, of course it provides a service for up and coming producers, and we do try to do it, and we still do put demos out from people, but it isn't number one on our agenda every day. And so in going back to your original question, what does it take? Well, it takes a lot of patience. It takes the ability to cultivate relationships, I think. I'd say getting noticed is not just sending an unsolicited email to somebody. It's like a digital message in a bottle, that. It might land on somebody's beach, and they might just be walking by at that moment, and that's a bit like what it's like, really. It might just drop in my inbox just at the time I thought, you know what, I'll listen to some demos. Got an hour to spare. Let's go through some. It's a little unlikely though, if it was 3 days ago, and I was busy those last 3 days in the studio or away or doing whatever, it's probably it's gone into the netherworld. So cultivating relationships, that if you're really into a particular brand or a particular label, get involved with that label. Get involved in answering comments and on our socials. People that have kind of love Selador will be messaging and constructive stuff as well, not just 3 fire emojis.
Yeah.
Talk with us is a good way to talk to us, because obviously our socials is something that we do look at, and we do see if somebody's regularly posting and they're posting nice constructive things, and you tend to you'll answer them, and you that's a way that you'll get to know who somebody is before they even start sending you music. So, and then when they do send you music, you're more likely to listen to it because you've already got some sort of relationship there. It's not a cold, it's not somebody you've never heard of before. Because, you know, just listening to the music that we get from people I know, from people I already know for 20 years sometimes. It's hard enough just listening to the music I get sent from friends, from producers, from artists already on the roster. But I am more likely to listen to that because I've got a relationship with them.
Yeah,
Than somebody
totally.
I've got no idea who they are. You know, it's just an email. So
I think that's incredibly useful and solid advice, because a lot of people do. It is a very much a hit and hope strategy on
yeah,
bigger established labels. Smaller up and coming labels, much more chance of having a demo heard when they're
yeah,
still building a roster and
yeah.
relationships. But yeah, it makes perfect sense. And what about the in-person approach? Because I know that a lot of people still will turn up to gigs and like strike up a conversation and maybe stick a USB in your hand. Good strategy.
I can't say it's the best one, no. I mean, if you've met somebody in person, it depends how that conversation went. If it was a quick hello, how are you, is it a USB? And I'm in the middle of DJing, that might as well just be an unsolicited email again, you know, because I might not even remember, you know, and it might not even get listened to again. I might have forgot about, you know, it's that if I'd had a chat with somebody for half an hour at the bar before I played and they gave me it, that person is somebody that I've kind of connected with, you know. But like just handing it over to me while I'm DJing might not be the best thing.
Right.
I honestly think that, again, like I say, through socials and through, yeah, of course, if you're then talking to people through socials and then you turn up to a gig and say, oh, by the way, I'm so and so, and you've already okay, yeah, how you doing? And it's cultivating relationships. Social skills are really an important part of it, I think, these
I
days.
love it. I think that is such a solid message, because, as you pointed out now, it's so much more accessible to write music. I mean, you can pretty much get all the tools you need for free these days to
Yeah.
even start. Whereas way back when, I remember just saving up for my first set of 1210s, and it was a mission back then just to get my hands on the gear to start that, and then the studio gear. So it's easier access. You can get on your soapbox and start screaming out into social media now easily. But it's this idea, I think, that people have of, if I build it, they will come.
Hmm.
Whereas actually there's quite a lot of legwork into, as you've put it, I love this idea of building up personal relationships and not just sticking your stuff in inboxes, or you know, building a social profile and hoping that people are going to appear. There's actually human beings behind it at the end of the day, and it's cultivating those relationships that's key.
Yeah, and that's a long process. So that takes a bit of patience, and and over several months, and just building slowly, just doing it for the right reason. If you really love Selador, and you want to be on the label, then why wouldn't you be involved in what we're putting out and what we commenting on what gigs we got coming up or anything? Then you become you're almost becoming part of our extended family before you even talk about wanting music.
Wicked, I love it. So there's obviously the other option now, which is the self-release route, or things like Bandcamp that a lot of people are exploring. What are your thoughts for people up and coming, labels versus Bandcamp, one or the other, both? I'd love to hear your thoughts overall.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Bandcamp's great. We're doing Bandcamp ourselves. It's a platform that's a little bit more, you know, thoughtful for the artist and the labels, and rather than some of the bigger platforms, which obviously artists are getting very, very pennies. But I think it's a your strategy should be a little bit more expansive. There's something to be said for like doing one thing and doing it really, really well, I suppose. But you are putting all your eggs into one basket, and I think doing everything and only doing everything like 5%, Mr. 5% of everything, is probably not the greatest. So somewhere in the middle, I think, pick a few things that you're comfortable with. Different platforms require different skill sets. You know, if it's, you know, Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, or, and then, you know, where you sell your music, you deciding which digital streaming services and which things like Bandcamp. There's so much to think about. YouTube. So it's very difficult to do all of them unless you've got a real team behind you. And I think a team is key. If you can, you know, it's very difficult to do everything yourself. Well, impossible, really. Get a great team around you, and choose a few key things, the ones that you're really comfortable with. Try to play to your strengths, really. And Bandcamp, yeah, I mean, it's great, but a lot of this stuff is all about digital marketing, which, you know, is something that I'm continue to learn about. It's not something I got into making music for, but it is you know, it's a very important part of it now. And if you can't do it yourself, then if you can get somebody to help you do that, and yeah, I mean, there's not one way to make it these days, is there's so many different ways, and it's finding your way and finding the way that works best for you. So I can't say, yes, do it that way, or do it that way, or do it, you know. Some people have made I know I spoke to some certain people whose majority income now comes from Bandcamp, you know, which is great. And then others, it's from Spotify, and others, it's, you know, from merchandise. There's so many different ways to do it. So
are they typically established people, Dave, who are saying the majority of their money's coming through
yes,
Bandcamp?
yes. Sorry, yeah, I could clarify that. Yeah, but I think with up and coming people, yeah, it's about getting somebody's ear, isn't it? It's about getting somebody's attention, and there's lots of different ways to do that. Yes, you can do it through digital marketing, but that generally takes some investment as well, financially. Or, as I say, cultivating relationships and getting in with some people that have got bigger platforms, that you can get your music onto. And then, I mean, there's lots of examples throughout the years of, you know, going back to MySpace and stuff like that. I mean, you know, Lily Allen and Adele and people like that. I mean, it is possible. It is possible to do it yourself, get out there and get noticed.
Yeah,
But
totally.
it is again going back to the digital message in a bottle thing. You know, there's lots of. I think you've just got to cultivate. As I say, I would just say take 3 or 4 platforms, and try and do them really good to start off with. Try and play to the ones that you're most comfortable with. Reflect you and showcase you in the best possible light as an artist. Go for those. Get a team around you, and patience. Unfortunately,
Yeah, I love that word, because you've brought that up a few times, and I think we're in an era now that, you know, social media and the internet and all of these things, and the, you know, the dreaded mobile phones,
yeah,
breed into our mind a lack of patience. It's the want it now culture, and actually that is likely to move your chances of success much further down the road than if you play the slightly longer game.
yeah.
I love what you said, though. One thing I picked up on with the digital marketing is that's not what he got into making music for. And I think there is something important for people to understand here. Particularly, fine if you've got time to burn, or you love doing it, or it's your job, you may lean more towards taking that stuff on. But there is also the risk of it eating into studio time, maybe even getting good at your craft and all of those things too early on, because it does take investment. It is the Wild West, and the rules get ripped up and chucked out and changed just as soon as you've got your finger on what's going on. Someone sort of steered it off somewhere else for you, and that's per platform, let alone the new ones and things coming out. I think it's a really important consideration. Whilst we're on this and just looking at your career, which, you know, is expansive, and you've seen so many twists and turns and changes in the music industry, even from the laws, the types of music, the parties, the formats, and all of those things. Out of your journey, has there been anything that you found was a particular challenge, something you needed to adapt to along the way, and how did you navigate it, if that is the case?
God, it's a challenge all the time, which you just highlighted there. Everything keeps changing. I think that's the beauty of it as well, though. I think that in a lot of jobs that you'd been doing for 30 years, you know, by this point, you kind of you'd be short of challenges. You'd really know a lot about everything there was to know about particular professions. The profession that I'm lucky enough to still be holding, is constantly changing. You know, you never, as soon, like I say, as soon as you think you've got it, as soon as you've got then something else is changing, and you're already taking your eye off the ball if you think you're on top of everything.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, obviously, to live through the end of the analog era into the digital era, as I have, and the explosion of electronic music, and everything that's happened in the last 20, 30 years has been an incredible era in humanity, I think, to have experienced all that. Challenges are just part of the thing. I mean, God, you'd just be boring if there was no challenges anymore, wouldn't it? So, so in terms of navigating them, just keep on trying to learn, keep an open mind, keep trying to, you know, I mean, I said before, a little thing I said before about playing to your strengths. Obviously, that's key. You know, play to your strengths. That's something that you do, but you've got to constantly, you know, remind yourself of your weaknesses and try and strengthen those at the same time. You know, whatever you do in life. I mean, that's just general sound advice for everything, I think.
Sure. So thinking about the scene now, and I guess the upsides and the downsides, if you were starting out again, what would your strategy be, you personally? Because I know we mentioned there was a bunch of different routes, and so it would be different for everyone. But I wonder, you personally, what your approach would be if you were right near the sort of very beginning of this. Maybe you're writing music, but you haven't approached labels or actually got out there in any way, but you've just got a grip of writing tracks maybe, and I don't know, maybe you're someone who's DJing in your bedroom and honing your skills. What would your maneuvers be?
I'd have my first 3 years mapped out before I even spoke to anybody, pretty much. I'd have everything. I'd have thought everything through, from the look to the how I presented myself on social media, to I'd have a whole album, if not the second album, ready to go pretty much. I'd have the whole package sorted in my head and be really happy and really confident and know where it sat and know who my team was exactly and everything. I wouldn't be doing a track trying to get it signed and then getting on to the next one before. I'd be way ahead of everything. That would be my
so having a portfolio of music so that you're not, I guess, like fighting fires and chasing your tail. You're maintain a degree of control.
Yeah, sorry, and have everything in place. Know who my manager and who I was going to work with from a social media point of view. Have the look of the logos, the all the press shots done, the biogs done. How I was going to present it. Have a complete marketing strategy. All sorted. And know who I was as an artist, really, before I even started. I think back in the day, you could, and I did. I know, with Brothers in Rhythm, we made lots of mistakes along the way, and you could afford to do that. A lot. You could get away with it a lot more than you could do now. If you really want to make a bang and really want to get there quickly, know you're exactly what you're doing before you even dip your toe in the water, really.
Right. Okay. Yeah, makes perfect sense. And in that strategy, if we just sort of cycle back, you'd already be thinking, okay, so this is the label I want to work with, this is what I want to do, and you'd already be starting to build those relationships along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you'd be obviously. I mean, I'd say before you dip your toe in the water, you'd be doing lots of that, but without actually putting any music out. So you'd almost have you'd have your relationships all cultivated, doing what we were talking about before with all the labels. They'd know who you all are, and then you go, oh, by the way, here's something I've done, and you drop an album, and here's there you go, there's the whole thing, and they'd be like, oh, wow, it'd make a real impact.
That's really interesting. That's very different to what pretty much everyone is doing, and I love the term zig when everyone else is zagging. So
Yeah.
that for you would be a standout thing if someone went, you know, here you go, Dave. Love your label. We've been chatting for ages. Here's my album. Here's my artwork. Here's my branding. Check that out.
Yeah, here's who I am as an artist, by the way. It'd be like, oh wow, I didn't even know you made music. And it'd be like, wow, that's yeah, something that I'm not listening to one of 500 tracks there. I'm listening to an artist who's already got a clear picture in their mind of who they are, where they want to be, what they're doing. Yeah, that would make an impact.
Fantastic. I love it. So if we dive now down to we've kind of almost started with the end in mind and go to the planting of the seed, which is the actual starting to write the music and all of those things. For you, I guess if we talk about your creative process, probably a great start with this. When you sit down to write a record, what does that look like? Is there already inspiration in mind? Is there maybe there's not a set point? Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. Sometimes it's a record that you've been just played out or a gig that's inspired it. I wonder what gets you in the mood to write, or maybe that's not even the right question. What gets you started on a track
Yeah,
typically? Let's keep it
I
wider.
mean, full disclosure here. I don't know if you're really talking to the right person because I've finished no music this year at all. Nothing at all, and we're into mid-September, so maybe the wrong person for your podcast. Oh, it comes from lots of different things. I mean, I haven't yet. I mean, I don't make music on my own. I don't have a studio here. I have a music room, record room, but I don't make music here. I don't have a studio. I've always made music with other people. I find the collaborative process a much more I like to when making music to make for it to be real fun, and I think you get more fun out of it when you've got other people in the room to share it with, to share moments of wow, rather when I'm sort of sat doing things up on my own and by myself, it feels more like work. It feels more like a process like that. So I've always done it like that. And I've got no intention to. I mean, same for DJing. Say the music just generally is there for sharing for me. It's that I like seeing other people's reactions. I like get a buzz off that. So for the last 18 months, I haven't. Obviously we were in lockdown a lot of the time. I don't like doing it remotely as well. I've done some bits and pieces remotely. Yeah, I mean, and that's getting a lot easier as well now when you can really share screens and almost feel like you're in the room together, and sound wise and everything. So. But I do like being in the same room with other people and the whole collaborative thing. So yeah. So this year I've not been in the studio. I mean, I'm actually going in the studio tomorrow, and it's only my 5th day, I think, this year.
Oh wow.
So I've got a couple of people I work with. I work with Jay Gilbert in London, who I've worked with for the last several years. Who I'm going to be in with tomorrow. It's my first time with Jay in over a year. Also, I've been doing some stuff with John Graham, Quiver. This year we're doing a project together. So I've done a few days with John, just getting some sketches together, which are now off with other collaborators, with other vocalists and musicians and stuff, getting other as I say, it's a bit like that process of being in a band. You get each individual's influences and skill sets, and they all people bringing different things to the table. I like that process. It's something we did a lot with Brothers in Rhythm when we were working with some of the pop artists that we work with. So it's something that's continued to do, to try and when I'm making music. So in answer to the question, where does it start? Well, when I'm going to work with somebody like Jay or John, then I'll try to come with a lot of ideas in mind of what we're trying to achieve. I don't like going in and just wandering around trying to find what that thing might be. I mean, and a lot of producers, obviously, maybe who are on their own, have got their own studios, have got time to do that, and of course amazing things come out of that sometimes, but also it can be a big waste of time a lot of the time as well. So if I'm going down to London, which Jay is, and I live near Nottingham, so I was in a regular thing with Jay where I used to go in once a month before lockdown. So I used to have 2 days in London every month with Jay. So that'd be staying over. So when I went down there, I wanted to make the most of it. It was good to get me focused. I've got 2 days. I want to come out of that. By the end of that second day, I want to come out with something that's almost done. Might not be completely finished, but like at least 80, 90, 80, 85, 90% done. So that any finishing off that needs to be done, we could do remotely because we've already got the crux of the entire thing mapped out. So yeah, so going down there tomorrow, I'm just before I was speaking to you there, I was going through, actually we are going to work on a track that we'd started a long time ago. So I was, yeah, you want to go in with all the ideas of exactly, and it might not be totally, you might not have totally fixed on exactly what it is you want to do, but you want to have lots of ammunition with me. So, you know, lots of, generally when we're starting something, lots of hooks, a main hook to start off with, you know, rather than going in and trying to, you know, figure your way out, which, you know, you might spend a day just waste of time. I haven't got time to waste a day just figuring it out like that. I need to know 2 or 3 main hooks, main things, and how it roughly, an idea in my head, a picture in my head of what it's going to sound like. Of course, when you get in there, that might really change over the course of the day, but you need something, you need an idea to start with, a focus, I think. And that can come from anywhere, as you said. I mean, I've got a whole wall of inspiration here. I've got tons of these ideas that we're talking about now, because having done 18 months of sorting my record collection out, I've got thousands of samples, thousands of little vocal hooks, lots and lots of stuff. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to bombard Jay tomorrow with lots of things. We've got to try and narrow it down tomorrow. But yeah, that a lot, obviously that's a key thing, and it can come from anywhere. I mean, can come from, I've just been writing some lyrics for somebody for one of the things I was doing with John, and we've got a spoken word thing that we wanted to have on top of one of the tracks that we started. So the lyrical idea can really, you know, a title can then become like, I'll write out the lyrics and then get somebody involved to sing it or to speak it, as the case is on this, and then that expands into something else. So, or it could be a film that I've watched, or a book that I've read, or anything. I mean, inspiration can come from all sorts of different places. I just scribble it all down in my phone. I've got like lists. I'm a big list maker.
Right.
So, and now with having the phone rather than bits of paper all over, it used to be like some sort of madman figuring out all the lists of things that I had back in the day. But now with everything in the phone, scribble it down, otherwise you'll forget it. Yeah. Or if it's a, you know, if it's a melody or something, you know, record it into your phone, and have it all there ready for when it is you. And then when, you know, whittle it down, sometimes you can live with these ideas for a little while and think, well, actually that one really, you know, that one that sticks with you for a little while longer, actually, yeah, that's the one, that's the best one, let's go in with that. Have a place to start and go for it.
Awesome. So you take the ideas in, then you'll sit, and the, you know, whoever you're collaborating with, they might have some ideas, and you whittle that down to like a core, I guess, set of ideas. And at that point, are you sitting listening to like an 8-bar loop or something? What does it typically look like in the DAW?
Again, that could be real. It can vary, but yeah, I mean, I suppose, yeah, you do start with it. You get a little bit of a loop going, but if you've got a vocal idea, maybe you map it out around that, or but yeah, generally, obviously, you get a bit of a loop going, and have some sort of basic musical ideas going in, to try. It's trying to meld some of those hooks together. I think like Racket Abuse, for instance, was one of the tracks I had out last year on Selador. That was a vocal sample that I found while I was going through my records, and it was actually a bass part that we'd had from another track before, that I thought that was really good, but it wasn't working in the track that we were working on at the time. So we saved it. Again, have a save folder of ideas that are great, that don't necessarily work with what you're doing. Don't forget them. If something's good, quickly render it, take the idea and put it into a folder to come back to. And then, and yeah, with Racket Abuse, that was it. It was the vocal sample and the bass part. And when we put them together, I whacked them into Ableton. They were so great together. So I just had a bass part and a vocal, and then we mapped it out from there. So it could be. There's no hard and fast rules, is there?
No, totally.
Whatever gets you excited, I think. If something's not working, if you're like laboring over something for more than half an hour or something, then move on to get something else going, or scrap that. Or if it is a good idea and it's not quite working, just, as I say, put it into the folder for another time. And
yeah, it's interesting because a good buddy of mine, Demure, he talks about this idea of, because the way that I teach a lot of the times is create a bunch of different sketches, and obviously you're doing that in your phone, you're getting your ideas, you're building things, and you've got this almost catalogue of ideas ready to pick the thing that you're vibing off of to move forward. But I love the way that he puts it. He considers the things that he's working on that he's like, I'm not quite feeling it now, but I'm going to save that like assets that are there to be realized at a later date. Almost like this is something that I've invested in, and there will be a time when this realizes into a piece of music and something tangible that I'll put out into the world, which I think is a really nice way of looking at things.
Yeah, it's about vibe in the studio, isn't it? You should be buzzing, you should be excited, you should be, and that's a good thing as well. I tend to do that a lot. We've got 4 or 5 things going at the same time, and if one thing's not kind of working, let's go into something else. Let's get vibing on that. And so you might have several different tracks going, and just whatever the one that's really getting the creative juices flowing at that particular moment. So you're always making progress. You never stop. I mean, obviously, there's moments in the studio where you've got to do the boring, laborious thing. It can't all just be fun and creative, buzzing like that. Sometimes you have to knuckle down and get on with the details and the laborious bits and pieces. But I think certainly to start with, when you're talking about getting started with a track, you need to. If you're not buzzing, then how is anybody else going to be buzzing about it?
And I know you mentioned if you were creating a vocal track, that might already kind of be dictating the framework of the arrangement of the piece of music. But if it isn't a vocal track, do you have any specific techniques that you go to for arranging pieces of music?
No, arrangement's always the most difficult thing, isn't it? And again, there's no hard and fast rules to that, really. You just got to feel your way a little bit on that one, and tend to, live with things sometimes. Sometimes just do a rough arrangement, and then, it's always good. And then maybe move on to something else. As I say, keep bouncing back between different projects with the way I do it. Because then the following morning, it's always the first thing the following morning when you've not listened to something from the previous day, and how it feels straight off to you with it, without picking it apart. Sometimes you get a little bit tunnel vision into certain things, and just which bits work, which bits don't, and and feel your way from that. So no, not specific. There's no hard and fast rules again. There isn't hard and fast rules to anything when it comes to making music. Really.
Not much, no. But I mean,
whatever works for you, whatever works for each individual, as long as you get there in the end, it doesn't matter how you get there.
I think there is one thing though that's a super valuable piece of advice in there, which is to step away from it and put some time and distance between you and the piece of music to come back with a fresh perspective. Because I totally agree with you. It's very easy to get tunnel visioned, and your ears or your mind are focusing on one particular thing, and you're missing the big picture and the vibe and how the track feels holistically. And that break is nearly always so valuable. And then obviously you have the in the shower moments. Oh, that's how we're going to fix it.
Yeah.
Damn it. We've been laboring over that for a couple of hours, and I've just figured it out whilst I'm washing my hair, sort of thing.
So important. Always, and like you say, and always be receptive to that. Always be open from whenever that thing comes. Never close your mind off. And, oh God, yes, that's it. And then but you've got to be in a certain type of mindset to be able to get that to that point, I think, and then remember it, get it down, and get it, and then you're going to make progress.
So $1 million question on this: how do you know when a record's finished? How do you know when you're done?
Well, if it still sounds, if you finish it, you think, and you go back and a week later and a couple of weeks later, and it's still sounding pretty damn good. Of course, there's going to be tiny little bits maybe that you change, but if it, give it's that little space away from it. Again, you've got to. There's been lots of times when I've thought I'd finished something and just desperately to send it out to a label, and then send it off. We just finished this. Have a listen to this, and then afterwards thought, oh God, I wish I'd not sent that yet. Because the following day, I would change that and I change that and change that. And you only get one chance, if you send it to somebody and they're not really feeling it that first time because you haven't quite finished it. Patience again comes back to patience, and you'll know if 2 or 3 weeks down the line it's still sounding as great as you thought it was. It probably is.
And do you use, obviously, DJing all the time, you have the opportunity to road test tracks. Is that a part of the process of finishing pieces of music, or genuinely, if you think it's good in the studio, it's good?
Yeah, no, playing it out obviously is very important for dance music. Yeah, for dance floors. If you're making music for dance floors, then you've got to test it out on the dance floor. It stands to reason. So, you're not better than the reactions that you get in that respect. If you think something's, I mean, you can still say it's finished, but it might not be. It might not get the kind of reactions that you expected on the dance floor, and so if it is a record for the dance floor, it's not doing its ultimate job there in that respect. But road testing is important. Not that I've had much chance to do that recently, but
I love that line. It's not better than the reactions it gets.
Yeah.
That's a lovely little sound bite. That one, Dave. That one's in the archive, buddy. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, there's been certain tracks that I'm really, really pleased with, and it doesn't necessarily get received, as well as you'd hoped, and the vice versa. Things that I thought weren't as great as they are, and everybody loves.
Yeah.
So it's out there. If you're putting it out there for judgment, then that's allow that judgment to tell you how good you think it is. Of course, if you're just making it for yourself, then it's up to you what you think's the best and what's not. But if you're making things for a dance floor, you've got to let the dance floor decide. Not necessarily one gig though, because there might be a different crowd from one night to the next. But over a course of time, then the dance floor will decide.
That's great as well. And this is again jumping back, a line that Nick Muir used, a little soundbite actually that I grabbed off of him, was he said that I have no right to other people's opinion on my music. Right. Which again is that idea of once you let it go, you've got to let it go and respect what the other people are or are not saying about the piece of music. It will be what it will be once it's out in the world.
Everybody's entitled to their opinion, and so you've got to let them have it. Yeah.
And on this front, obviously trends change. If we go back to this idea of all the things that have moved over the years, there's been a whole bunch of shifts and different, sometimes fads, sometimes new kind of directions of music that stick. When it comes to producing tracks, are you conscious of the trends? Are you trying to bring something in? And how do you stay, I guess, relevant but also stand out? I think that's perhaps my more underlying question there.
Yeah, that's a really difficult one as well, isn't it? I mean, of course, I run a record label, so of course you're wanting to be current and be on top of current trends, and just generally the music that you listen to, the music that's coming out, and the ones the music that you connect with at any particular time. There's lots of trends going on simultaneously, and it's whichever one you gravitate towards, I suppose. And you can't help but have have some sort of influence on the music that you make, of course. So you don't set out to make retro music. Oh, some people might, and they're entitled to do that. But for me, you do want to be current on the cusp of what's happening. Have your finger on the pulse. But at the same time, you're quite right. Sometimes being the Zag to everybody else's Zig is what makes you stand out. So But that's the holy grail, isn't it? If everybody knew how to do that. And sometimes you make a track that is very different to everything else, and it'll just get completely lost because it doesn't fit in with everybody's agenda at that time. Or it might be the thing that changes everybody's direction. Oh wow, we're all off on that direction now because that was amazing. How it's very difficult to quantify that.
It's interesting because I think even picking up on what you said there, I think there is almost a slight secret in here in some ways, in that you maybe don't need to try too hard, because for me, I think your own sound is a combination of being prolific and making sure you're constantly putting music out, DJing, whatever you're doing, and also being authentic to yourself. And what you just mentioned there was, there are lots of trends going on, and it's which one you gravitate towards.
Yeah.
So that I think there's a really interesting thing in there which says, okay, be on top of the trends and then just follow your instinct as to which ones you like, as well as having your broad diverse. I mean, you've got your mega record collection up there.
Yeah.
You'll be grabbing in inspirations from things maybe from different eras, different genres, movies that you've said, compiling that. And so there's the authentic, unique you in there. That's been informed by the trends, if that makes sense.
I don't think you'll ever be original again. Original's all been done, but you can be unique. So, you'll never find another red, yellow, or blue, but you put yellow and blue together and you make green, and that's a unique thing. It's not yellow, it's not blue, and obviously that's the very basis of the color analogy there. But now we're talking about putting so many different nuances of different colors in that eventually you'll come with whatever it might be. Mint green mushroom is what you whatever colors. I don't know. I've not been following Farrow and Ball recently, but you get like very, very niche thing that is unique. It's you. You've taken all these inspirations. You've got to follow in your instinct and eventually you'll come up with your own. Nobody else, because it's you that's taken all those different things there, all those different inspirations, and mix them all together and come out with your own result.
Totally. And everyone, you heard it here first. If you want to get on Selador, subconsciously Dave is looking for mint green.
With a bit of mushroom.
With a bit of mushroom in
Mushrooms
there.
are important. They always have been.
So I got a couple of questions to round us out here. One is really mashing up everything that we've spoken about here, and I loved your idea of already getting a feel for who you are as an artist before you start getting out into the world. When does somebody know that they're ready to put stuff out into the world, I think would be my question there.
I think you'll know when you're ready, won't you? You'll know when you've got all bases covered. And as I said, it's really important to have a team around you, have some people around you whose ears you really trust, friends who'll be honest with you, and almost be your soundboard before you go out to the wider world. I'm sure we've all got people like that. That teamwork, it makes the dream work, is very important these days. So you can't do everything yourself; it's impossible.
Right, so have a peer group, people you trust, other producers, people's opinions, and then you can use those to navigate whether you're on the right path or not. Fantastic. Love it.
You don't have to take everything on board. It's your prerogative to dismiss people's opinions out of hand if you want to. But I think if you've got a good group of people who are true mates and whose ears you trust, then get half a dozen of those around you, and generally they'll point you in the right direction.
Great. So what I've picked up really is the building relationships, patience, trusting your taste, and get people around you early on as being sort of key factors. And then if you were going again, you'd have everything mapped out and be ready to blow someone's mind when you're ready to sort of step over the threshold, so to speak.
Have a clear picture of who you're going to be before you even set out, rather than making mistakes along the way and maybe ruining those chances that you have with people by not being as good as you could be before you get started.
Superb. Love it. So last question for you. What's coming up? What's in the cooking pot? What can we expect from you going forward? Where can we hear you play? All of that good stuff.
As I say, tomorrow back in the studio with Jay. So trying to get a new single finished for Selador before the end of the year. I'm also going to go do something with Steve Parry for Selador's 150th release coming up. So we're going to do a collaboration together. Steve, obviously, I run the label with. The stuff with John Graham is ongoing. That's going to be an album called Seduce and Destroy is the artist name on that one. Not sure who's Seduce and who's Destroy yet. We're still figuring that one out between us. But and then from gig point of view, I've got a few things coming up. We've got Rumba's 30th birthday in Scotland in a couple of weeks. 30 years, unbelievable. I was there right at the very beginning. So great party up there. We got and for Selador as well. Seladoria is our new live events concept, where we're trying to do. We're going to start doing label parties with all the artists on the label, but try to make it a much more immersive experience. We've done a lot of had some big visuals made, and so it's going to be a bit of a visual feast as well as an audio one, and that kicks off. The official launch party for that is 24th of September in London at
nice.
with myself and Steve and Danny Howells and Just Her. So it would be great to see some of you down there to hand over your USB. But make sure you speak to me at the bar before.
Super. Well, I've scribbled down that date. I hope we can make that, actually. I'd love to come down and say hello, buddy. It'd be great.
Come have a drink, yeah.
Well, Dave, thank you so much, buddy, for jumping on the show. I hugely appreciate it. And it's amazing to get so much insight from someone with so much experience, not just in terms of the length of time that you've been in the scene, but you have had your hand in so many different things. You're project managing, and you see the industry from a lot of different angles and perspectives, and I think there's so much gold in this episode. So a huge thank you for jumping on the show with me. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to be able to get down on the 24th and have a beer with you.
Yeah, it'd be great to see you. Yeah, it'll be. So hopefully, I'll catch up with you then. And yeah, like I said, even though I haven't finished any music this year, hopefully there was something to take out of that.
Oh no, totally. It's there's loads coming on, and as you said, you obviously are typically collaborating face to face with people, which has been the door shut on that for us for quite a while. So
yeah. Thankfully, we're coming out the other side of that. So long may it continue.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much, Mr. Dave Seaman.
You're very welcome, mate. Thank you.